we're going to bring on the third speaker. All right, so here right now, we're going to explore the author's route, and I'm going to introduce you to Daniel. So Daniel, also someone I know personally. He was an aspiring leader responsible for US 5 million training budget. Wow, not one, not two, not three, but 5 million training budget. So much to play with, you know. It's like somebody who has a marketing budget of that amount. There's a lot of things we can play. We can really have a party, right? So he had that in 2015, and despite that apparent success, one day he was told by his manager to show more leadership. Now, you won't find anybody to, you know, that who will come up front and say that. That's really being very transparent. That's one thing that struck me when I met Daniel. You know, he's so open, and he's not shy about just being himself. And he, you know, at that time he said he was unable to show what he didn't know. Is like, what is leadership? If the person who is leading you is unable to help you on that front to the level that you need to know, then that's the reason why, you know, that formed enough impetus for him to do what he did, right? And to find out more, which end up being a book that he finally authored. Did he think of being an author in the beginning? I don't think so. I'll let him answer that question. Daniel has double master's degree in HR and industrial relations from Monash, from Melbourne, and he's married and has a young family, a former police officer who patrolled the streets of Singapore. Okay, and today he's gonna talk to us on this particular title, which is Discovering Yourself Through Twists, Turns, and Pivots. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the floor to Daniel. Over to you.
All right, thanks, Aline. Thank you very much. I just want to say before I start that you know, hearing Boon Siong and In Sing's story about business trips, I was left scratching my head, wondering, how come I was only flying economy and all the time I had to claim my expenses?
They were the ones using your budget.
So yeah, you know, so I'm just going to switch on. Sorry, I'm just going to go and get my slides. Just give me a second.
Sure, no worries. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this whole idea of discovering yourself through twists, turns, and pivots. And, you know, I want to really start off by just sharing this. You know, this is where I actually work, mostly at home. And usually, in order to accommodate to the tropical weather, I'm not wearing a t-shirt. But for this event, I'm all dressed up. That's me and my book. It took me nearly 3 years to get that book in hand. But you know, what I really want to share is that, I mean, clearly you can see that the book is called First Time Leadership, and it's just meant to help first-time leaders now. So first-time leaders are what I would define as, you know, they're leading a team for the first time. So why I decided to write the book was that I read a lot of other leadership books, and I couldn't really get an understanding of what leadership was. So I realized, hey, look, why don't I write something of my own? And instead of looking at leadership from one angle, I would look at it from this holistic point of view. And what I would do then is I would take leadership and break it down all to its individual parts and explain to people, hey, these are all the different parts of leadership. Here's why they matter. But instead of just sharing based on my perspective, I went to interview all these leaders from around the world, consolidated all of their perspectives, found out what was the underlying trend for everything. And that's how I was able to conclusively decide, hey, these are the 30 traits that a successful leader needs in order to be effective and successful. So I just want to thank you know, Eileen and WSG for this opportunity. I just want to say that in line with this whole idea of career transitions, I understand that it's challenging. I've experienced it at least 3 times as a corporate employee. And for the time that I have, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about three very important time periods in the last couple of years. And it's going to look at particularly, you know, what things look like on the surface. And for each time period, I'll talk about what things look like on the surface, what was actually happening in the background beneath that surface, what were some of the lessons that I learned along the way, and what's one takeaway that you can have. And hopefully at the end of my talk, right, it will be able to help you with the takeaways that I share with you, to be able to shed a light, or at least shine a light on the next step that you need to take in your own transition. There will also be a couple of polls that I've organized with Eileen, so that at least we can get some feedback and on how things are going for you.
Yeah, just a caveat that we are not talking about his book here. Okay, talking about his journey, because
Yes.
some of us might miss the point here. Yeah, it's about his journey. That's why he's here. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, got to forgive me a bit. I was just doing a bit of a soft sell. All right,
Okay.
so there are going to be 3 time periods that I'm going to be talking about, right? This is my the transition experiences that I had in the last couple of years. So there's going to be what I call the corporate time period, you know, from that time, from August 2015 to October 2016. And then we're going to look at what I call the real transition, right, from July 2017 to June 2018. And then what I call the entrepreneurial time period from July 2018 to present. So let's start off with the corporate time period, August 2015 to October 2016. I actually grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So my mom used to run her own business. My dad ran his own business. My brother still runs his own business. But for me, I wanted to just be a corporate employee. And when you think about it, right, there are many benefits to being one. I mean, you know, when you got the opportunity to work for an MNC, whether it's a small size or a large size, you know, there's usually a fairly decently furnished office. You get the occasional overseas travel, you get a competitive set of salary, fringe benefits, a nice position title, you know, and if you have a good boss and a great team to work with, you know, that's all very nice, right? So as an employee, I took the money that I was given and I did whatever I could. I mean, that's just a fair thing. Of course, the trade-off is very obvious. You are sacrificing your time for money, and you know that actually is a very fair trade-off. I mean, you walk into work, you're responsible for what you do, you achieve the results, you don't offend anyone, and hopefully, like a functioning escalator, you progress in your career. Yeah, the organization keeps you busy, so you don't have too much time thinking about what you really want in life. And here's the thing, you know, when you are employed, you don't really have time to think about that, which is okay until it's not. So my last year as a corporate employee, I wish I could say that it was a very smooth experience, but actually it wasn't. You see, I've been working in the banking sector since I came back to Singapore in 2013. And honestly, you know, hours in the banking sector were long. Right? I started to question whether I was working for the bank or I was working for my family. And we all know that we spend hours in the workplace, but we're really working for the family so that we can earn the money to feed them, right? But the thing was that I was working so long in the bank, so many hours, that I didn't really get to see my family much, but they got to see my money and use it. So I started to think, you know, when I was on the train in the MRT going back home after an 11 or 12-hour day, I started to think about, hey, what's my direction? Where am I really trying to go? Well, the good thing was that I didn't really have much time. I eventually had more time to think about that because I was made redundant with restructuring of the bank. And so I spent 6 months at home looking for work, still intent on getting back to the corporate sector, which actually was a good thing because at the time, you know, I had a 10-month-old, but my third kid was, you know, and that gave me the time to just spend with them. So after 6 months, I went back to work for another bank, but I only lasted 3 months with that bank, right? So 3 months with that bank before I left. So it turns out that this new bank that I work for, the hours were even worse than the previous one. So if I thought, you know, 10, 11 hours was crazy, this new bank was worse. I remember this one time, I came back on a Saturday. It was a Saturday morning, it was like 10 o'clock, and I found my entire team there. And we ended up working to about 5 p.m. on a Saturday, just so that we could clear up the work for the week and then get ready for the next. You know, eventually one day I came back home at 8 p.m. after an 11-hour workday, which was considered short. And then I asked myself, hey, look, what's the point of me being around? What's the point of me not being around? my family. I mean, what's the point of having a family then? And you know what? That was it. That was when I realized that I could no longer just recklessly give up my time for the corporate sector. And so what happened then was that my wife and I came to this agreement that, hey, look, if I were to leave the corporate sector, our family will be all right financially. I mean, we lived a simple lifestyle. We just have to tighten things a bit, you know, so much for holidays, but it will still be all right. That's the advantage of having married to a very capable spouse. But the real struggles wasn't so much the financial, it was the non-financial. You know, I suffered from an identity crisis. Without the organization giving me this title, I had no idea who I was. Right? I was no longer HR, a human resource professional. I was just me. And quite honestly, I started to ask myself, who is Daniel Lee? Who am I? And that was a really hard question for me to answer. And you know, as 2016 came towards a close, I really felt like a recluse, like a hermit. You know, I stayed at home because I felt very conscious about myself whenever I went out. You know, at home, I thought of myself as the Minister of Home Affairs. But whenever I left home, I just thought that I had been voted out. You know, while not having a job didn't really affect my family relationship that much, it definitely affected my sense of self-worth. I felt that without a job, I wasn't contributing to society. I became very self-conscious the moment I even step out of my unit just to throw rubbish. I would just quickly step out there, throw rubbish, come back in. I didn't want to see any of my neighbors because what I didn't want was my neighbors asking me, hey, what are you doing now? I noticed that you're home, right? So of course, when people do ask me that, I say I'm in between jobs. When my relatives ask my wife, what am I doing? She would say, I'm taking the time to think of my next step.
It's a common, it's a common struggle. It's a common struggle. There are also professionals whereby, you know, friends of friends invite them out to network, and gradually you find that those who have not landed jobs are declining those invites. And thanks for being very open here, because more of us need to hear this, that it's okay. It's okay to, you know, once we are not hiding anything, right? You find that most people will not speculate anymore, and it is what it is. But let's find a better way of phrasing it, right? It is what it is. We just need to be very comfortable with the phrase that we resonate with. So yeah, thanks so much for pointing that out.
Yeah, you know, and you know, just to add to what you said, Eileen, it's not that the person is declining. You know, I mean, I'm sure they will want to go out. It's just that when your sense of self-worth has been crushed to that point, for me, I just felt embarrassed. You know, I felt embarrassed that I wasn't a productive member of society. You know, we sometimes have this social conditioning, and you know, when we don't meet that level of expectation, we just don't know where to go. So, you know, I was home quite a lot. And yeah, you know, so back to what I was saying earlier, my wife would tell other people that I was planning my next step, but honestly, I had no idea what my next step was. So, you know, the takeaway over here for this particular episode, this time period, is that when I, you know, from leaving the corporate environment, is that I've gotten so used to identifying with the position title that the organization gave me, HR manager, you know, HR consultant, whatnot. You know, it could be logistics manager, whatever your position was last time. And in a way, having this title is very comforting, because all you need to do is wake up, get dressed, go to work, do what's required, get paid, done. You don't need to think about it. You got this direction that is given to you, and you just need to follow, right? And it's perfectly fine being an employee. After all, organizations need employees in order to do the work. But what is essential is that you walk your own path. All right. So I want you to. So what I mean by that If walking your own path means you working for someone else, that's okay. Because you are walking your own path and the organization is accompanying you. My mistake was getting too used to being in an organization that I forgot about my own path, my own journey. So when you're in a transition stage, it's really a good opportunity to reassess your life and to determine, hey, am I walking on my own path? So the question is, how do you begin to find out if this path that you're on is right for you? Maybe for some, it's about finding something that's passion. You know, you might be doing something you're good at, but you're not really passionate about it. Maybe for others, is you finding something that you're good at doing, but you never really had a chance to explore. And maybe for a few, it's like a calling or purpose that you want to answer, but you never really had the opportunity to do so. So I want to just launch a quick poll, and Eileen, if you can help me with that. You know, with this first poll, I just want to get an understanding of all the, you know, the 170 plus people who are still around here. You know, how many of you are looking for employment, and how many of you are looking for something else?
Yep, I've just launched the poll. So 2 choices. Are you seeking employment? Are you exploring possibilities? Yeah. So which
Oh,
are you?
wow. Look
I know,
at that
right?
goal.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
look at that goal.
And while you know people are picking their choices on there, I thought I should just read out Kit comment from Kit in the chat. She says thanks for being candid and humble. That it takes a lot to do that. So kudos, yeah, to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Kate. Well, look, you know, just based on the results, it's really clear that over 80% of people are actually using the opportunity to explore possibilities, which is great, you know, because the possibility could be back into employment in an organization, which is perfectly fine. But at least you're using that opportunity to sort of pause and just, you know, and just think, hey, you know, that you're going into the next step with both eyes open.
Yeah, I was worried you say with both eyes closed.
And I want to bring everyone down now to the next time period of my life. All right, so that's the poll. Next time period, which what I call is transition. Now, of course, every time you're out of this paid work, it is a transition. But for this long period that you see here from January 2017 to June 2018, it was like one endless transition period. So, you know, now it was really towards coming in the end of 2016, and I really decided, okay, I need to get back onto my feet. You know, no more just staying at home. Enough of feeling sorry for myself. Mind you, I was still very much in this employee way of thinking, but I felt this calling inside me to try to be brave and do something different. So I looked at my skill sets. I'm thinking, all right, I come from this training, learning and development, HR background. Why don't I try my hands at being a trainer? Seems like a logical step to connect the dots, right? Like, oh, HR, human resource. So let's try to be a trainer, you know, small, safe step forward. I saw a lot of postings on the internet for what they call school-based trainers, right? So for those of you who have kids, especially after the exam period, a lot of the schools will organize these teachers to come in because the teachers need a break. They're marking papers, they're preparing for to review the papers and all that. So they bring in a lot of these external school-based trainers to keep the kids occupied. So I started to apply for these positions, and within a few days, I got applications. And by the end of 2016, you know, I had already completed my basic induction for a couple of these training vendors, and I started work as a school-based trainer. So simply, like I said, you know, these school-based trainers, they, you know, when the vendors, especially when they win training engagements in the schools, they farm out the jobs to trainers, and the trainers will then go to the schools and deliver the content. And the remuneration on an hourly basis can be pretty good, right? I had the flexibility as well of picking and choosing which engagement I wanted while juggling my time with my family. Some vendors saw more potential in me, and they started to ask me to get involved, take on more responsibilities. And soon I found myself managing, you know, training engagement projects, meeting teachers in schools, even bidding and winning a couple of projects in return for higher fees. So just to give you an idea of what the remuneration might be on a per hour basis, it can range from between $15 to up to $40 an hour for for primary school all the way to secondary school. And then if you are teaching polytechnics and university, the amount can be even higher, 60, 80, or even $100. Sounds good on a per hour basis. But the flexibility sounds good, right? When you line them up against a full-time job, like I said, on a per hour basis, these school-based trainers can earn quite a bit. The reality is that the number of hours that I was getting was only maybe 10 to 20 hours max. So I was part-time, working between 25% to 50% of my capacity. And also the school training market is very competitive. So there are a lot of vendors who will come in and compete on price, and they will push the price down. And what happens when your price pushed down, even if you win engagements, your fees are not much. And I mean, of course, to be fair, to give a sense of balance, being able to get back into some kind of gainful employment and earn money was really helpful for my sense of self-worth, right? So whenever I go to a training engagement and I fulfill that, I know that I'll be earning money, which I could then, hey, buy an occasional meal for my family. However, there's always a but. Life has a way of telling you if you're not going on the right path. So after about 12 months as a school-based trainer, which is the whole of 2017, so you can imagine I spent 12 months just going to all these different schools, getting a lot of experiences dealing with kids from a whole range of ages. But after 12 months, I had only made the equivalent of 15% of my last drawn salary, right? So just to give you an idea, my last drawn salary probably nowhere near Yingxing or Bunxiong, but it was coming to a six figure, and to only make 15% of that, I mean, you can just work out the maths in your head, So I was grateful for the money, but I started to think, wait, is this all I can do after 12 months? Perhaps if 2017 was better, that might have delayed the question. But because I wasn't seeing success, that question popped up, like, could I do more? So I wanted to earn more money. I wanted to make more. And I thought, okay, hey, wait, I do enjoy this whole idea of training. Maybe I can go from the schools back into the corporates. Secretly, what I was doing on the side? I was applying for jobs. But at the back of my head, I hope that I was failing. And you know what? I went for a couple of interviews and I never succeeded in going past the first round. So maybe that was a way of life telling me. And I wish I could say that I knew what was going on in my head. But at that point in life, I had no idea. All I knew was that I wanted to try something different, but I was very fearful of being ridiculed in case I failed. Too many years in the corporate world had conditioned me to think, that way. So I toyed around, but I kept toying around this whole idea of, all right, let's go from schools into corporates, and maybe I can start my own training consultancy. And so I decided to find a business coach. I recalled that from my last corporate redundancy, the bank that I worked for had arranged for a career transition coach. So I got along with her very well at the time, and it was just pure coincidence that I reached out to her just to find out how things were going. I found out that she actually helped people with career transitions, whether from one job to the next or from job to entrepreneurship, which is exactly what I needed. So after some soul searching, I dug into my savings and I engaged her for a 12 months coaching engagement. And it was really to help me with my fears, right? To particularly just to transition away from this employee mindset to entrepreneur mindset. And let me just share with you this. Some of my fears were absolutely ridiculous. We once had to set up a website. Every single business has a website. So every single entrepreneur, most of them will have websites of their own. I once took 2 days, 2 whole days before I decided to say yes to a website. Right? Seems quite brainless right now when you think about it, but who takes 2 days to decide, okay, yes, I want to spend $120 for a 1-year license to get a website. And then I was very fearful of engaging on social media because I didn't want to disagree with people and then, people end up trolling me or something like that, which at the time, maybe I was thinking too highly of myself, but, I was ignorant. And I had absolutely no idea how to brand myself, like actively, consciously brand myself, how all the pieces put together. So this career transition coach helped me to start overcoming those fears. And when our engagement ended, I was able to then use what I had learned to improve on that. And now, of course, you find me and First Time Leadership on, on the web, on social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So by the way, that career transition coach was Eileen.
Ayo, I thought we said don't mention it. Oh my God. Okay, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yes, but just want to say that Daniel stuck to, whatever decision that he made. It's not easy. Sometimes, when we coach people, not everybody is the same. In fact, every one of you is different. Whatever your story is, it's going to be very different from another person. Some parts are similar, but it's not entirely the same. So, we listen to various speakers, we take away the bits that we can resonate with, and you can throw the rest away. But sometimes all you need is just one story that somebody took that first step. So I know there's also a question here about, there's so much buzz about social marketing, social media marketing, and also social marketing business. And is it really feasible, for us to consider if we are not tech savvy? I think that
I will answer that. Yeah,
I thought
I will
so.
answer that question, because there's one part where I cover later on just exactly about that, about social media. So thank you for asking. And yeah, look, everyone, I'm not paid by Eileen at all. However, the time that I spent with her was helpful in getting the ball rolling. And sometimes when you are in transitions from one to the next, you feel stuck. And I felt stuck at the time, and I needed just that nudge to get the ball rolling. And that was what was important.
感动, 感动.
Yeah. So, the takeaway here is this. I want to stress that at that point, I was still very much a work in progress. And even now, I continue to be. And when you decide to move from one corporate job to the next, the transition is actually very small, because you're just taking one step from one job to the next. However, when you choose to transition away from the corporate world and you start to explore other things, your next step is likely not going to be it. Whatever it is you're looking for, right? Whether it's your passion, your purpose, your calling, your purpose, it's unlikely to be it. See, when I became a school-based trainer, I was simply taking one step in a direction, and which I thought would get me closer to what I wanted to do and what I needed to be. What I wanted to be was to be a person of value, right, to others. And for some of us, maybe that's being in a job. But for others, it might be different. And whatever it is, be prepared for twists, turns, and pivots quite a few times. Money, while it's very useful and it's the second thing most important to oxygen in this world, it's really a plaster, for the uncertainty that we feel. And in my case, for the uncertainty that I felt. And I realized that I needed to address the uncertainty in order to be a person of value. And so all I knew was this: the next step that I wanted to take was I wanted to be a corporate trainer. And so I needed to start my own business. And to do that, I wanted to be around like-minded people. So eventually I came across this association in Singapore where some of the best trainers and speakers hang out. And these trainers and speakers travel the world and they speak to businesses and they work with companies. I didn't know at the time, but when I joined, I would eventually meet my current business partner and co-author of my book. And that takes us to the third phase, July 2018 to now. This really begins the entrepreneurial journey. So, for some of you may have experienced your company brings in an external trainer or speaker, and they come in and they do a talk at maybe your company town hall, or they run a workshop. And don't be surprised if some of these trainers can charge thousands, 5, 6, 8,000, or even 5 figures just for that 1 hour talk or that 1 day workshop. And I was meeting some of these trainers and speakers in this association. So of course, on the surface, the way they presented themselves was amazing. They were the top speakers, the cream of the crop. They had their own business, their own brand, their own products and services. And when I saw them, I was really inspired. And I thought, hey, look, maybe I could be one of them. And so when I started with my business partner, I set myself to tackle this question that I had in my mind. At the start of the intro, when Eileen was introducing me, the introduction said that my manager told me to show more leadership. I was left with that question in my mind for over 3 years. And I decided, hey, it's time for me to answer it. And so I've ignorantly thought to myself, all right, once I answer this question, I crack it, success will come, right? It's just a matter of when. The problem is that when or how long is subjective. So it seems like, all right, I found this direction. All I need to do is just to crack this question. But in reality, it turns out to be another twist, turn, and pivot in my path. So, remember what I said earlier on that I was secretly applying for corporate training jobs, but I wasn't successful? I reached a point where I realized that, hey, I actually didn't want to go back to the corporate world anymore. So I was left with one direction, which was forward. And, you could imagine myself right at that moment. It's not like I had set out to write a book. I didn't want to go back to the corporate world anymore. I saw all these well-paying trainers and speakers, and I thought maybe I can be like them. So I just took that direction. That was the only one that appeared in front of me. And we have to keep in mind that all through this while, my self-esteem was really low. It's like this trampoline here, right? Up and down all the time. So when your self-esteem is low, everything that you do is a challenge. Just for me to be able to write my book and to have it in my hands, I had to learn how to confidently, right, project confidence, right, confidently interview leaders at all levels. So imagine if you had to walk in and interview, the C-level people, the below C-level, CEO, the board member, the chairperson of public listed companies anywhere in the world. That's what I had to do. How intimidating would that be, right? And each time I had to do it, I had to overcome my fears. And what I said about I didn't set out to write a book. But enough of my interviewees asked me, hey, are you going to write a book? That eventually I said I was. even though honestly I wasn't so sure. It was really just one of those cases whereby I said that I would keep doing it until I did it. Right? Maybe you want to consider it as fake it until you become it or whatever it is. Then we had to, so once I decided that I was going to write a book, we engaged a publisher, and then I had to go on a process on learning how to write a book, which is different from just writing your compo in your O levels or your A levels. Completely different. That in itself means another challenge. And then I had to go and learn how to build my own brand. And this is where I'm going to answer that question about social media. Some of you might be thinking ahead, wait, don't I have a business partner? Can't my business partner help me with my brand? You see, my business partner, he's already established. And he's established in that old school way. It's face-to-face interaction. That's how he built his business. So he already established himself before social media became popular. And the thing I found is that if you want to accelerate your brand and you want to build a brand quickly, you got to use both. You got to use the face-to-face as well as the social media. And so I had to learn how to use social media well. And different platforms have different set of rules. And you have to learn those rules before you can play in those platforms well. And then of course, now where I am right now is, you saw in the earlier picture where I had sold a couple of those books. Now I'm learning how to offer value to my target market and get paid for it. Essentially learning how to sell. And for many of us, we might think, oh, we never had to learn how to sell. Well, for me, I spent all my time in school trying to avoid learning how to sell. And now here I am having to learn how to sell. All these things, right, from July 2018 to now, it's just a period of trials and error, figuring out a way that works for me. And what I have to say is that throughout this time, I was steadily rebuilding my sense of self-worth so that I would not allow it to be hijacked by anyone else or by anything ever again. And I think the real lesson, thanks, Aline. I think the real lesson here is this. My self-worth, and I think when you're in a transition, is, you will experience a lot of twists and turns and pivots. And you can imagine my self-worth on a trampoline. So I'm on the corporate sector, it's pretty high. I left, it's down. I became a school-based trainer, it got back up a bit, but then I realized that being a school-based trainer wasn't what I wanted, so it went down. And then I started my own budding training consultancy for a while, but I realized it wasn't what I wanted, so it went down again. And then now I started on this new direction and it went back up. And honestly, it's very tiring to have these emotional ups and downs. You know, there were many occasions throughout this whole process when I just felt dejected and I wanted to give up. There were all these challenges in front of me, and each time that a challenge shows up, I wondered to myself, can I overcome it? And each time I overcome that challenge, I become more resilient. And the episodes of dejection become less frequent. So you can imagine if you jump on a trampoline, if you're not used to jumping on a trampoline, your thighs, especially, if any of you have gone to bounce over at the Orchard Cine Leisure, your thighs get tired really quickly. But if you know how to bounce on a trampoline, your thighs become very strong. And each time you bounce, you get more energy to bounce back up. And that was my experience. Each time I bounced up and down on the trampoline, my sense of self-worth got stronger, and I jumped back up higher. And so what I realized was this. The reason why I left the corporate world, stopped being a school-based trainer, and even discontinued my budding training consultancy business, because what I was trying to do was I was trying to get closer to my purpose. Now, I'm not talking about some grand plan, some grand overarching purpose for life. Rather, I see it as life as a series of purposes. So I mentioned earlier on, I didn't set out to write a book. I just took the step in front of me. And then people asked if I would write a book. So I did. The next step appeared itself, and I took that step. I then figured, all right, if I was going to write a book, what do I need to do? I had to learn how to market myself. So I took that step and I learned how to build my brand, and I did it on social media. Then, in order to change the world, in order to help the people with the knowledge that I've gained, what do I need to do? I need to spread the word of what I do to the world, which means I need to learn how to sell. I need to make offers so that people can improve their leadership. And every single step that I took gave me enough purpose, gave me enough direction to take the next step. So it wasn't like I knew what was 5 steps ahead of me, or I had some 3-year plan. All I knew was, okay, this I can do for the next 6 months. And that was it. And then each month and each week that went, I could see 6 months ahead, and I just kept going that way. And what that did was that, you know, for example, by sharing and creating value for others and getting feedback that I was actually changing people's mindsets, their leadership mindsets, their careers, and even in some cases, some of their lives, that encouraged and enabled me to keep going. Every single time I overcame a challenge, I noticed that when I looked around behind, you know, there were more people following me, and they started to consume what I had to share. And eventually, I had this following in my own micro niche. And so you can imagine, you know, it's like this positive cycle that keeps going up and keeps going up. And eventually, I rebuilt my sense of self-worth. And I wish I could say to all of you that I had found my purpose for this phase of life. But perhaps it's more accurate to say that a purpose found me, and it gave me the power to keep going. And so one question that I want to ask all of you is, what powers you? Right? People are powered in different ways. So for me, it's about this desire to create a life of purpose. Maybe for some of you, on your journey, you need to be powered by passion. And yet for other people, maybe you seek to avoid suffering or to ease the suffering of others. And so, Ali, if you could launch the second poll.
Okay, this will be our last poll for the day. We're coming close. So, yeah. So for those of us who are here, please give us your preferences, what motivates you, what drives you, and beyond that, actually what powers you, what gives you that hidden energy and drive. Yeah. overcome all the different challenges.
Yeah.
And in fact, for those of us who, you know, who can resonate to the earlier story about leaving a corporate job, having a name card, having a what I call a corporate identity, you know, use this period to, you know, we are not meeting people face to face, but have a digital name card, right? Have a digital name card to give yourself and discover your own professional identity. What's stopping you? Yeah, what's stopping you? The more you delink yourself with a organization and focus more on who do I represent? You represent yourself, and who does this person, you know, stand for? Who does this person stand for? What's this person's personality, work preferences? The more you discover about yourself, that's your identity. You can go forth and create a brand around that. Whoa, fantastic.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
I'm
think we
just
can stop.
gonna end the yeah, I know, right? Okay, I'm sharing the results as well. So here's what you're seeing on screen. Yep.
Wow, look at that. So, you know, I just want to add that the answer that you give to this question could very well be the takeaway that you need for this segment here. Because for me, you know, passion is different from purpose. So what I'm actually passionate about is real estate investing, property investing. You know, I lived in Australia for a period of time, and I had the opportunity to, you know, go in there and, you know, buy those shabby looking property and fix it all up and make it look nice. You know, that I really enjoy. And if I had a chance to do it again, I would. With what I do with writing a book and helping people with their leadership, it's more about purpose. You know, it's not like passion, like you know, like fire, right? Passion. No, it's purpose. It's more like a cold butter knife. If passion is a hot butter knife, purpose is like a cold butter knife. It still gets the job done, but just differently. So I want to conclude. I want to wrap up, which is this. You know, the three takeaways to help you with your own transition journey. So the first takeaway is walk your own path, right? Don't get too used to the whole perks and benefits that come with an organization, because as the saying goes, easy come, easy go. One day you have the perks, next day it's gone. And then what? Walk your own path so that the organization is accompanying you. And more likely when that transition happens, you can retain your sense of self-worth. Next, twists, turns, and pivots. Any transition that you take is going to be a series of twists, turns, and pivots. So if your intention is to stay on the same path, you know, stay employed all the way until the end of your productive life, then, you know, the number of twists, turns, and pivots will probably be minimal. However, if you desire for more, then be prepared for a lot more twists, turns, and pivots. And always remind yourself that the twists, turns, and pivots are challenges that you have to overcome to get closer to where you should be. Finally, passion, suffering, or purpose. Find out what powers you in your own journey, you know, whether it's passion, suffering, or purpose. Because in order to go the distance, and what Boon Xiong and Eng Xing have said, you know, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, or, you know, however number of years, you need to be fueled by the right reason. You need to be powered by the right reason in order to go the distance and navigate the twists, turns, and pivots along the way. So I want to end off by just saying this. Career transitions can be disheartening because there's just so many challenges along the way. And sometimes you just want to be done with it. All right. I've been there. I can understand where that comes from. But just remember that the challenges are there so that if you choose to overcome it, you can get closer to where you should be. And when you do, you may be surprised with the journey of discovering yourself through twists, turns, and pivots. So that's pretty much it for me, everyone. My name is Daniel Lee from First Time Leadership. You can find me, Daniel Lee First Time Leadership, on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Yep. Back to you, Eileen.
Thank you so much. You have quite a lot of comments as well in the chat, and I I want to applaud everyone who have actually listened on and feel motivated by what he has gone through. One thing I always advise is this, and also I'm speaking from my own experience as well. When someone's open up and they are your naysayer, right? At least they open up. Just have to tell yourself that at least they are open enough to share a comment which could be contradicting yours. Well, at least I know who you are, where do you stand. Just tell yourself that this is the kind of feedback that you need. Now I can update my Johari window, what I know about myself and how you perceive me. So know that you are on a journey of discovery, to discover yourself and to discover how others perceive you. Okay. Now I also share this because if any one of you is keen on the first time leadership book, you can always buy with this special code AOC he created for all of you who are here joining us on this seminar, and also for those of you who are watching the recording. But if you would like to win a book, what we have done is to support our job seekers, Out of Career has also purchased 5 books. So this is what I did. I purchased 5 books. I'm going to give away 4 of those books because one book he has autographed it and he addressed it to me. So I'm keeping that. So, I've been receiving feedback from listeners who have either participated or watched the recording. So in order to win your book, all you need to do is go watch the speaker's recording, all right? And instead of sending me your comments, because it's not the same when they hear it directly from the audience. So I'm sure speakers like Boon Seong, Daniel, and In Sheng would rather hear it from you. And after watching any of the speakers' video, write in meaningful comments. All right. If you got nothing to say, I don't mind you not saying anything. But if it is just a simple word of thanks, I'm sure the speakers will appreciate it as well. It's amazing that I get all this. And when I send it to a speakers, some speakers thought that I'm faking it. I'm not. So you will see that the videos out there, there's no fake comments there. In fact, there's nearly no comments at all. I rather keep it that way. But if you do have and you appreciate, please write a note to them. It's not to me, it's to them. All right, comment on their video. All you need to do is go watch, take your time to watch, but I will ask Daniel to pick those, whichever, right? The most meaningful comments that he see, reading those feedback from the viewers, because he has walked the journey. So I'm sure he can sense these are true comments or not. So I'll let him pick the winners, and the prizes are all fully sponsored by Out of Career. All right. So on that, what I'll like to do is, yes, you can subscribe and you would actually stand a chance to win the book. But do join us also, because I'm gonna give Daniel his time, and we are gonna also play this live on YouTube. He's gonna be talking about his book. All right. So next Wednesday or Thursday, I can't figure out the date yet. But at 12:30, we're gonna give Daniel the floor to talk about his book. Please support him, because we are all fellow job seekers here. We are all working in the same country, same location. And for those of you who join my other events, this is a year of helping one another. Let's help one another. Let's start, all right? So Out of Career have turned 5 this year, and that's what we are doing. We're doing a lot of free events. I'm throwing out a lot of free resources as well. Anything to help you, because you never know. One story is all another job seeker needs to change their life. All right.